Okay. Hey, Lisa, how are you? Yeah.
All right. No, no. I said come on down. I said we're resetting. All right. Let's come on back in. Our last speaker before our closing ceremony. I was going to put 75 minutes on there. Really panicky. No, you can. Don't worry about the time. All right. Let's all take our seats. We're going to start back. So I want to introduce our last speaker. Adam came together on Tuesday over a year and a half ago or so, as I remember. And he's, one of the things that's been great about having him in our meeting and also in just fellow traveling with him and spending time is just how sincere he is, in touch with his true self, and just very realistic. I really appreciate that. I hope you all will see that as well. I am grateful to have him in our meeting and also in this meeting today. So let's hear Adam's story.
Hey, I'm Adam. I'm an adult child.
Hi, Adam.
I'm gonna set a timer because I do tend to talk. Can y'all hear me okay? All right. I'm gonna try to use the microphone. I'm honestly very nervous to be up here. Just first and foremost, it's very uncomfortable to be in front of a bunch of people who have shared their stories and who I have a lot in common with. There's a little bit of fear about that because I'll get into it. So just it feels weird to talk into the microphone. So just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a history of what sort of what brought me to ACA. I've been clean from drugs and alcohol for almost 17 years. I got clean, and I've been a member of Narcotics Anonymous NA for a solid 16 years, and I've been afraid to talk about it because I've heard so much negativity. I'm oh, I should not let anybody know that I'm a member of Narcotics Anonymous. Yeah, I've definitely never given anybody shit about emotional sobriety. I highly value it, but there is a lot of it lacking sometimes in NA meetings. So, like I said, I've been clean for 17 years, or almost. I'm coming up on it, 17 years. And at year 15, so just before this year, because I'm at 16 years clean right now, I started working in a drug and alcohol treatment place as a substance abuse counselor and a housing manager. I've been doing NA. I mean, and I need to say this because I've done NA. I've done every service position you can possibly do in NA. I've taken every suggestion. I've spoken at conventions. I've done workshops. I've talked about traditions. I've talked about concepts. I've talked about steps. I've worked the steps. I've worked with sponsees. And what I find really interesting as I've sat here and I've listened all day today is I keep reflecting on how many different members, how many different addicts used to ask me if I had ever heard of ACA. which is just really interesting that I say here now. It was just kind of coming back to me today how I sponsored a guy in NA some couple of years ago, and he's like, I really just feel like I really want to work this ACA program. I'm gonna start going to these ACA meetings, and I was like, okay, well, that sounds cool. He's like, do you want to work steps with me? I'm like, no, I don't. Like, it's like, well, we can do this fellow traveler thing. I'm like, I don't know what that is. Like, I'm not interested. No. I mean, I was like, for me, it's like you go do what you need to do for yourself, but that's not for me. I'm an addict. Like, NA, like we're addicts. So we just have one program. We just work this program. I have the disease of addiction. I'm an addict. That's it. That's all I do. I don't need anything else. Like, this is what we do. And then of course, but I needed therapy, and obviously I needed some more help. So, like I said, I've been clean for a long time. I grew up here in Georgia, just a little further south of Noonan. So, my hometown is out in the sticks. Like, it's really, I grew up on a farm. We had cows and horses and chicken, lots of chickens and eggs, and lots of just animals. Ate like all these weird, crazy things that most people don't eat growing up that I didn't learn about until I got into college. I really thought it was normal for people to eat squirrel. Like, apparently that's not really a thing. So, so a really small town, an incredibly conservative small town. And there was a lot, my community it was hard. It was really hard to grow up there. Everybody knew everybody. And my dad, who's my qualifier, my dad was really big in the church. And he wasn't always really big in the church, but my dad, like, being I didn't even know my dad had an alcohol problem. It was not something that I really knew about. But as I've stayed clean, I learned that, in getting to know my dad better, that a lot of the stuff that happened as a child really was due to my dad's alcohol use. So it's not really something that I really noticed. It really was just more the dysfunction of my family that I noticed. I other than my dad turning up bottles of NyQuil, I really just had no idea. But he was a lot to deal with. He was just a lot to deal with. There was a lot of religious trauma. I grew up just really getting really beat up for years of my life, told that I was going to hell. I was evil. I was Satan. It just was on and on and on. It was over and over and over again. And now I understand, through coming here, that, this was just, that's my dad's mental health. Like, it's all tied in. So kind of how did I wind up at ACA? Like I said, I was working at a drug and alcohol treatment center. I was an addict, and I'm working with addicts all the time. Having a really hard time going to NA meetings because it's just like, Jesus Christ, I'm so sick of seeing, and like, I'm coming in here to help people, and then I need help, and I'm trying to go to meetings, but I'm dealing with more addicts, and it was just like, I'm really, really struggling with this. Like, after 15 years of doing all the service and like showing up and being with addicts all the time, like, this is just really hard. I've heard a lot of people talk about it. Just had a really shit ton of anger. Just so much anger, and it used to just come out sideways, with clients. And it was one of those things, like, kind of as I've heard other people talk about. For me, it became this kind of this signpost thing of like, where is all this coming from? Where is all this anger like really coming from? I'm working a program. I'm doing the steps. I'm doing all the I'm doing all the service. I'm working with sponsees. I'm doing everything and taking every suggestion that you can take. I'm doing all that stuff. So why am I still? Where is this anger coming from? Because I'm working that program, and in the course of that, I was doing some training classes, and one of the training classes that we had was mental health and substance use. And I had to sit through this class, and the trainer of the class, we talking about all the different ways that substance abuse shows up and different types of mental health and how it ties into substance abuse. And we got to the schizophrenia and how it can manifest in religion. And I had to raise my hand. I'm like, can this be a religious thing? Because we were talking about all these different ways it's, and they're like, yeah, and it's really hard because people just assume, it's so common to, for people to do that and for us to kind of like accept that that's normal. And, and I literally had like a panic attack, and I had to get up and just walk out of the room. And thank God that I worked in the mental health field, because I reached out to, now that I'm saying this, I can't believe it. I went and talked to one of the women who ran one of the groups on trauma, and was like, I'm really freaking out. And I told her, I was like, as I'm listening to all this, it just hit me that my dad, is a schizophrenic, has schizophrenia tied to his alcoholism. And I grew up with a lot of abuse. And the truth is that, like, in all the years that I had been going to these meetings and, doing NA and speaking at all these events and all these conventions and whatever, I never really talked. I was like, I always used to refer to my childhood as like, it was just normal. It was like, it's just normal. I had a mom and dad. It was fine. It was a little weird growing up, being the only gay guy in town. But I mean, other than that, like, it was just, it was just normal. It was a pretty normal childhood. And it was kind of in that moment that there was like this sudden realization of, holy shit, there's the reason I've been going to therapy, the reason that I started doing all this stuff, the reason that I didn't know at the time that was the reason that I was so angry, but it was just this sudden realization of, man, there's a whole side of my life that I have just not been, I just have never acknowledged. I just never even realized, and I love the ACA program. I love the ACA literature because it's so unique and it's so specific, and it talks so many times about things that I completely relate to. When it talked about denial and coming out of denial, I was just like, holy shit, like that's it. And it says, like, I think it's in the very first chapter of the yellow workbook about how we can come to we can have all this experience in other 12-step fellowships, but there's this other part of us that, the adult child part of us that hasn't like yet healed. We have to go through this, this basically like confronting this level of denial. And I mean, that's so true for me. I mean, after 15 years of lots of step work, I still had never dealt with, really the abuse from my childhood. I just kind of freaked out, and I literally went to the lady at my job, and I was like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, maybe you should like try to talk to some people. And I reached out to a couple of my NA friends, and I'm like, man, I'm really like freaking out right now, and I don't know that I need to go to an NA meeting, but I don't know what to do. And she's like, have you? She's like, Adam, I'm just gonna ask you, have you ever heard of ACA? And I was like, yeah, I've heard about it. I've read those laundry lists. Like, I read the laundry list. I relate to all that, but I don't, I'm an NA guy. Like, I don't do other fellowships. But there's that, and we talk about, at least in NA, that gift of desperation. And that was kind of what brought me to ACA. Was I had that realization. I was so desperate because it was just suddenly like I just couldn't. There was this whole history there of 12 years of my whole adolescence that just suddenly was like staring me in the face, and I didn't know what to do. And so I came to which happened to be on a Tuesday. My friend was like, you should check out ACA, and I went right to the ACA website, and there was a meeting that night at 7:00 at the in-town church, and I was like, well, I'm gonna just go to that. I don't know anything about I really didn't know anything about ACA, but I was like, feels like that maybe what I need to do. I think I don't know if the people who were at that meeting remember, but I think I pretty much like cried through all the readings. Like me, I was really it was everything, every single thing that like was read. I was just like, oh fuck. You know, I mean, just like Jesus Christ. You know, maybe you'll relate to some of our readings, and I was just like, I relate to everything. You know what I mean? Like. Even if there's no alcoholism, you know, and I'm just like, oh, Jesus Christ, like, you know, just so fucking hard. I have a lot of trust issues. I was kind of thinking about this today, and I swear to God, like, I haven't heard anybody say this today, but I'm realizing as I'm here, you know, I still have a lot of trust issues. You know, and I'm sure I'm not the only one, but if don't trust, don't feel, you know, like, I have a lot of trust issues. And I really just coming to ACA, it was like going to NA, like the first couple of times, like I didn't trust anybody, you know. I'm really like terrified. I'm really terrified of new people. I'm just honest, like, so completely terrified of people. The great thing was that there were a couple people who came and talked to me after the meeting, and you know, was no like real pressure or anything, but you know, just gave me some literature and we kind of talked, and no one really like bothered me too much, and you know, and there's that whole thing about if you can handle what comes up after 6 meetings, you know. So to me, I was like, oh, challenge accepted. You know, I'm one of those like people who's like, oh yeah, if there's a challenge, like I'm all for it. Like give me the challenge. And so I was like, I got to do 6 meetings. And I did I really wanted that six meeting in a row, coin. I couldn't get it because I'd come to 4 or 5 and somebody come up and it's like, I couldn't get it. But it did. I mean, honestly, the thought of getting that 6 meetings in a row coin was kind of the thing that kept me coming back. And also too that I really related a lot to the things that were said. I mean, you know, it says in the literature, you know, we'll become alcoholics or marry them or both. And so, I mean, I'm an addict. You know, drugs were my thing, and I've done enough work now in the program. I mean, thank God for this shit. I mean, for the program, for this shit. I mean, seriously, because sorry, 15 years of NA recovery was hard. It's very, and I can only really speak for myself. I can't speak for everybody's experience with NA or any 12-step fellowship other than ACA. I can't even speak for anybody's experience with ACA. I'll just say for me, a lot of my years in NA were really about, it's a lot of taking ownership for stuff. It's really this whole thing of you work through the steps and it's all about what's my part. And that felt a lot like just more beat up, you know. They have this one little saying in the NA readings, which is easy does it. And I've been saying that for 15 years and I never really experienced it. And as when I started coming to ACA meetings, it's now I get what the easy does it part is. I had to come to another fellowship to really learn what it is to have easy does it. I did so much beat up before recovery while I was out using and all the things that I did while I was in my active addiction. And then in the 15 years of recovery, the ongoing beat up, the never being able to give myself a break, never being able to let myself off the hook, just, you know, that nasty voice. I don't know all that. I haven't worked the Loving Parent guidebook yet, so I don't know which voice it is. I don't know if it's my inner teenager or my critical parent. I would say it's probably the critical parent because it's still, you know, in NA I'd be like, that's my addiction talking, or the itty bitty shitty committee. I like that one a lot, itty bitty shitty committee. You know, I have that goes on, but it's definitely the critical parent, and it's never let me off the hook. in all those years, like in like 40 something years of life, like I've never been able to get really a sense of what it's like to have a break. And in the last 17 months, I finally get what it is to like give yourself a break, to what it is to feel like to finally like let yourself off the hook for things that you had no control over. I didn't have any control over my childhood. I didn't have any control over the way that I grew up. I didn't have any control over my parents or my dad's mental health or, my mom's control issues. I kind of talked about my dad. I'm in a place right now with my mom that is really tough. And I'm not talking to her right now. I haven't talked to her since before Mother's Day. And it feels really hard. And I've been sharing about it a lot of meetings because I love my mom. My mom was like she was what felt like my anchor, as a kid. She felt like the safe space. But she was also the one who I never got like what I needed as a kid. She tried so hard to be mom and dad because of my dad's like craziness. And there was a lot of pretending that, I just grew up and the whole family kind of pretended that like this stuff wasn't really happening. I felt crazy all the time, like growing up, like, am I the only one who sees what's happening here? Am I the only one who thinks this is not right? And it was hard because I kept feeling like this is not what it's supposed to be like, but everybody keeps telling me, no, this is just normal. It's just normal. Parents tell their kids all the time that they're evil and bad and they're going to hell. And, and the community that the community that I lived in, that was all around me all the time. It was, if you drink, you're going to hell. I mean, I went to school and it was just every single thing that I did, everything that we're all adults here, but I was like, if you masturbate, you're going to hell. I mean, just all the things that like, oh my God, there's no option for me. And it was just everywhere that I turned. It was just in the community all around me. So I couldn't even get like a different perspective as a kid. The only person that was kind of emotionally available to me as a kid was my grandmother, who also molested me. So it's this like, and through working my 12 steps in NA, I was able to forgive her. You know what I mean? I've really been able to like work through a lot of that stuff. But there were some years, especially around my first 4-step, where I just couldn't be in the room with her. I couldn't see her. I couldn't talk to her. But by the end of her life, she was like my best friend. It's kind of weird because like you grow up, or for me, like growing up and being molested and going through that stuff, I just never thought that I would ever be okay with her. And by the end of it, there was like this level of I don't know, I'm kind of like, I'm not ever going to be okay with what happened, but that's just something that I'm going to carry around forever. It just is. But it doesn't mean that, she had her own mental health issues, and then doing this fucking shit that you guys make us do, these family inventory things that like I had never done before. I'm like, oh yeah, like her mother was, abusive. Like, I mean, and it's just on and on and on. It's just this like family history of abuse. My dad's dad was maybe not an alcoholic. I can't really get a lot of information because he passed before I was even born. But I mean, he had, according to my mom, he was really inappropriate and, completely dysfunctional. So my parents, in their own way, were just doing the very best that they possibly could. And, my grandmother was just, she was fucked up. But when I got older and I was able to learn to like set boundaries and, be like, no, then I could have a relationship with her, and it was kind of beautiful at the end because I learned that like, it's okay for me to say no. And it's okay for me to be like, this is not okay. I'm not okay with that. It's taken me a lot longer. I was disowned by my dad. And as an adult, this is, as an adult child, the boundary thing is still really hard. I was telling, I think I was sharing this with my home group the other night. I went to Dragon Con. I'm a huge Dragon Con person. If you guys know what Dragon Con is, the big comic book, sci-fi anime festival in Atlanta. I've been volunteering for years. I was almost gonna wear my Dragon Con shirt today, but anyway. So I have a sticker and it's sitting in my car right now, and it says Dragon Life. You know, it's got the like Dragon Con logo on it, and it's been like sitting in my car. And every time I look at it, all I hear, you know, is like I keep thinking that at some point, it's not like maybe once, like maybe I'll see him one time this year. I'm gonna see my dad maybe around Christmas or Thanksgiving or something, and I'll have that sticker on my car, and it'll be, you know, this is evil, and you're bad, and you know, and I'm like, dude, I'm almost 50 years old. Like, I pay for the car, I pay for my insurance, paid for my way through college. I've basically like been taking care of myself for most of my life. But yet I'm worried about that like one 2-day visit with my dad, you know, that it like stops me from doing something that, you know, stops me from I was telling somebody I've been going to Dragon Con like the whole entire 10 years that I've been here. I've never told my dad that I go to Dragon Con. It's like I go to a comic book festival, I go to, you know, but I can't ever say the word Dragon Con because then it's evil, it's bad, you know, and I'm gonna be you know, I'm gonna have to. It's just like that re-traumatization thing, and I'm so afraid of that. And it's a work in progress. I mean, I'm not totally healed. There's still some trust. Honestly, most of my trust issues are with men. So I tend to, in case I didn't mention it earlier, I'm gay, and so you know, in a lot of my using years and a lot of that, it just has a lot to do with men. And I'm honestly like just incredibly grateful to the guys in ACA who, I mean, it has been, I don't think anybody really knows it, but it's been hard. It's been really hard for me to let you guys in and to really just be able to like be loved. It's so much easier. It's just so much easier around women, but to be able to have, you know, men in my life who, you know, just show up and who listen and who have become friends and just, you know, call and we talk about this like really difficult stuff. I'm finally starting to see that I'm not alone. And I can't believe it took me so long to get here. You know what I mean? Like seriously, you know, they have this saying in NA is like, well, if you come around long enough, you'll eventually hear your story. And so like for 15 fucking years, I'm like, when am I going to hear my story? You know, I've heard like bits and pieces over here and bits and pieces of it there, but literally I've been in ACA for a year and for 17 or like a year and 5 months or so, almost a year and a half. And I'm going to just stop that. I've been here for a year and a half, and within the first like just couple of months, I literally, someone came in and told their story in our meeting, and I was just like, holy shit, that's my story. You know, like I've heard my story like more times in the last year and a half than I heard in 15 years of being in Narcotics Anonymous. You know, it just took me a while to get here, you know. There may be, I don't know, you know, I can't say what my life might have been like had this showed up earlier. I think I had to go through what I had to go through. As I heard someone say earlier, because of the trauma and everything from my life, drugs was a great escape. I mean, it was what I needed. It was the only thing that saved my life when I was 18 years old, because I was suicidal. I was seriously fucking suicidal. I had already attempted suicide like 4 times. I was a cutter, you know. And then I found drugs and alcohol, and I was like, oh, thank God, like some relief. And then after 15 years, I'm like, I just can't, you know, I just can't do this shit anymore. I want to like die again. You know, I still want to die. And so I needed to do what I needed to do. And that was to get clean off of drugs. And I needed that. I needed that time to do that. And I'll just say this, like, I think I read it somewhere in our literature, and please forgive me if I'm misquoting it, but I think I read somewhere in there that was like, you know, if you think drugs and alcohol might be a problem, it might be good to like go deal with that first and then come here. And I get why, because this is, I'm not gonna be vulgar like an NA. This shit is not for wimps. I mean, it just isn't. Like I've heard it said so many times today. This is some really difficult stuff. I have like not worked like I said, the loving parent guidebook or anything, but the steps have been really tough, and I've worked some tough steps in my recovery. But like coming in here and like starting to peel another layer of that onion off has been one of the most painful experiences really ever. But it's also like, and I don't want it to all sound like horrible, but it's also been like really beautiful. I mean, I was sitting back there because I couldn't remember what all the promises were. But as I was like reading them, I'm like, man, so many of these have already started happening for me. We'll discover our real identities by loving and accepting our true selves. Our self-esteem will increase as we give ourselves approval on a daily basis. I cannot fucking believe that I even can like let myself off the hook today. You know what I mean? Like seriously, I cannot believe that there's a moment where I'm in my car and I'm raging out because of shitty drivers in Atlanta, and I'm just like all over the place. I'm like, fuck. I'm like, dude, I'm like, it's okay. Like, it's all right that you feel that way. I'm like, maybe there is like a loving parent that's starting to happen in here, but I'm starting to let myself off the hook. Like I'm starting to give myself permission to be a fucking human being. Fear of authority figures and the need to people please will leave us. I have struggled with bosses, especially like men, for my entire life. Like, and here I am. I was telling Ned a couple of weeks ago that my boss and I knew I had to have a difficult conversation with her, and I just told her, I was like, I'm not really happy right now with you. I'm having a really hard time with this, and this is why. And I just want to like say, like, it feels this way. And she said, well, it feels this way. And I just kind of stopped and I looked and I was like, wow, I'm really glad we talked. I'm like, thank you. You know what I mean? I was just like, thank you for talking to me. And I was just like, holy shit. Like, is this shit actually working? Like, did I just have a healthy conversation with an authority figure? You know what I mean? Like, holy fuck. Like, what is happening? As we face our fear of abandonment issues, we'll be attracted by strengths and become more tolerant of weaknesses. I'm still working on that a little bit. Enjoy feeling stable, peaceful, and financially secure. Definitely not there. Like finances are still tough, but I don't feel so crazy all the time. This one right here, though, I gotta share this because I was telling Ed, we learn how to play and have fun in our lives. So I just did my 9th step to myself. I've never made an amends to myself first. It's fucking hard. I've done a lot of amends. This was definitely the one that I have struggled with the most because I had to make it to myself, and I had to make it to my inner child. And I made it to my inner child. And one of the things that I said was, we're going to play. Like, I'm probably not going to do it perfect because I recognize that. I'm probably not going to do it perfect, but we are going to start playing. Like, I want us to start playing, and I'm going to make sure that I make more space for play. So just right afterwards, I was at Dragon Con, and there was this thing for Netherworld. They were, this whole thing like, oh, I love Neverworld and haunted houses and stuff. And so I was like talking to them. I'm like, man, I would love to like just volunteer. And they're like, well, you can't volunteer, but you could come and work for us. I was like, what? I could like come and work for you, and I could literally like just kind of like, yeah, it's no big deal, you just like whenever you want, blah blah blah. It's like, so I just went and applied, and like I literally just got hired, and so I go to my orientation tomorrow, and like what is fucking amazing about this is that the little Adam on the inside, like this little kid part of me, is just like, he's just like, yeah. Like, he's just like, oh my God, we get to like scare people for fun. Like, I mean, he's just thrilled at this. You know what I mean? He's just like, I can't wait. It's not even like fear at all. It is just like, I can't wait to do this. I can't come to another world. I was scared the shit out of you because like, and you're gonna pay me to do it, you know. But I am so excited, and that, you know, to me was just like, and I didn't realize it at the time, but I was like, wow, that is really like the shit is working. You know what I mean? Like that making amends and that, you know, promise to myself that I was gonna try and do something different is showing up. We will choose to love people who can love and be responsible for themselves. Man, I had to cut my mom, my sister off lately, and even my NA sponsor, because of the criticism, you know. And I was just like, and this is probably the last thing I really want to close with, is the reason I'm able to do this today is not because I read it in the literature. It wasn't because I, you know, read that in any of the books. It was because I come to the meetings and I was listening to people talk about needing to separate, you know, and needing to cut their parents off, and I was kind of like, oh, you can do that, you know what I mean? Like it just never occurred to me like that I could do that, that I could take the space that I need for myself. And again, it's not that I hate my mom, you know what I mean? Like I love her, but you know, for me and my process and where I'm at right now, like I'm just taking space for me and my growth and my recovery around, you know, the trauma. I mean, you don't just experience 40 something years worth of trauma and like get over it in 17 months, you know. And I'm really taking that space. And I'm just really grateful because I would have never done this before, you know. And I've learned how to do so many things just by, you know, coming to meetings and working the steps and really listening to you guys talk about how you're handling the situations that show up in your life, you know. I mean, for me, that's kind of how it works, is like I come in and I talk about what I need to do and you're talking about what you need to do, and I'm like, oh yeah, oh, I know you can do that. Like, oh, I can not talk to them. I can just like take a step back. Wow, that is amazing. And so, you know, it really is like I get so much out of being here. It's an ongoing process. Like I'm not fully like healed yet. You know, it's still work. It's still painful. But the other side of it is it's also like really fucking beautiful. Like my life just feels so much more full and loving. I have friends in my life right now who it was in the Big Red book. We just talked about it in one of our meetings. We did a topic meeting and we were talking about having people in our lives that love and don't criticize. And I'm like, man, I'm creating a life that I want today, and I'm doing that with people who love and treat me with respect. And I just never knew that was possible until I got here. So with that, I know I went over my time, but thank y'all for listening.
All right. So same rules apply. If anybody has a question for Adam.
Hey, Adam, I'm Andy. I am curious about how your ACA experience now has you responding to, let's say, like sponsees in NA who are curious about ACA. I mean, can you say how that has impacted you?
So definitely. I am I'm kind of like I'm not trying to promote ACA for sure, but I mean I'm gonna absolutely talk about my experience. And that's kind of what I do. I'm just like, man, I'm doing this right now. Both of the guys that I sponsor in the program, one of them is already working in he already has a fellow traveler in ACA, so he's, you know, ahead of me in that sense. He's been doing it for like a couple of years. And the other guy, it's kind of like really great because me being in here, they just see a lighter side of me and a more like loving side. And so it's not like I necessarily, I don't promote really anything. I'm not one of those people. I just don't, I do what I need to do for me. But I definitely see I see it reflected back in their responses to me in this like lighter, like more loving, more gentle. I'm definitely giving them a lighter, gentler version of me that isn't quite so, if you don't have your step work done, then we're not blah, blah, blah. I mean, it's definitely like, it's all right, dude. Like, you know what? we didn't get it done this week. Like, we'll do something else. So there's just, I don't know that I promote it, but they definitely see a difference in how I'm responding to them because I've been coming in here. I hope that answers the question.
First of all, thank you for your honest, heartfelt share. It was really touching. You talked about religious trauma growing up. How do you, if you care to share, how do you navigate the higher power, spiritual God thing with this guy?
So I heard it said in a meeting here lately, and I really relate to the fact that like religion and spirituality are completely different. And I can say early on in my early journey into the 12 steps, it was a real problem for me. I really, really struggled with spirituality, and because I did a lot of after leaving the church, I did a lot of other exploration. And a lot of that was mixed with drugs. So just a whole mess. There's a whole mess on the inside when it comes to religion and spirituality. There's a mess. But the spirituality part has really been, it's been a search. That was one of the best pieces of advice that I've ever gotten was it doesn't have to look like anything. And it's kind of like, as everybody here has said, it's really been it's an exploration for me. It's really been one of the first guys who ever sponsored me was you get to figure out what works for you. This is probably terrible, especially given where we live. But I heard in a NA meeting years and years and years ago, and it was one of the first things that I needed to hear was, and it is terrible, so forgive me. Religion is for people who are afraid of hell, and spirituality is for people who've already been there. And I really related to that. And I'm not saying that I believe that. Okay, don't get me wrong. There are plenty of people that I know who are very devout in their faith and wonderful, loving, gentle people. But for me, that helped me kind of realize that I could do something different, right? It didn't have to be what I grew up with, and it's an ongoing. For me, it really is an ongoing exploration. It changes all the time. I'm not wearing my Star Wars shirt, but it's like the Force. Sometimes it's going to a meeting and hearing, sitting in a group of people like today and just hearing the thing that I needed to hear come from somebody in the meeting, So, but it's like I just listen. I listen in so many different places. I don't have to go to, this or that. I'm still learning how to just kind of be open to messages wherever they come from. Instead of it has to come from this group of people who say this and you got to do this and you got to do A, B, C, and D, where the spirituality part has really been about just being open to getting a message anywhere, being at a meeting or being on a date of all things, which I don't do well. But in just the most randomest of places, sometimes it's just a song on the radio or, earlier it was the trees over here. I kind of zoned out and I was just wow, it's beautiful. And I was just all in that for a minute. So spirituality has really just been my higher power. I love the term higher power. And I love that we don't really gender it here in they do in here in ACA and in a lot of other 12 steps that here. But it's been really beautiful to really just kind of look at it more as an exploration, as something that I'm still exploring and still just kind of like my recovery. It's still an exploration. There's still more to learn. I definitely don't have all the answers. So I just try to stay open to that, and still love everybody. I love my dad. You know what I mean? I love him. We don't talk about religion, and that's a boundary that I have, but, I love him to death, and he respects that he, not always, but has gotten to a point where he respects that I won't talk about religion with him and will shut down, and I just will be we're not talking about that, and so, and to me, that's a form of spirituality that I can just be hey, that's not a good place for us to go, so let's talk about Mars, or the grasshoppers. Anyway, I hope that answers the question. I don't know if it. Well, y'all, thanks for listening. I hope. That's it.